What's up, everybody? Michael Richards here with Elite Athletic Performance. Welcome back for another video. We're going to get out of the studio for a couple of videos now, talk about our staple exercises that we do here at Elite Athletic Performance, meaning the main ones, the stuff, the meat and potatoes, the stuff that our program revolves around. You know, there's accessory exercises and then there's the big lifts. I'm going to go through the big movements that we use on a daily, weekly basis that kind of build the foundation of everything we do. So stick around, should be a good one. All right, so first we're going to talk about the box squat. I'm going to talk about why we use it, what we do with it, when we use it, what we're trying to accomplish with it. And before we get into that, I want to talk about, you want to look at all of this information as, these are just tools. All of these exercises are just tools that we use. A hammer is not always better than a screwdriver. It just depends on the situation. So I'm not saying that box squat is king over, the back squat or vice versa or anything, but for our population and what we're dealing with and all the situations that play into that, this is what I like to use the most, and I'll tell you why we use it and things like that. So first things is, what is a box squat? So box squat, and it's kind of ironic, we use a bench, we don't use a box, but it got its name from squatting to a box and then standing back up. Some people that don't really understand the mechanics and the things that are going on will tell you that it's cheating or that it's a weak way to go about it or whatever, and you just got to understand and use it when it plays into what you're trying to do. So with the box squat, the main thing that you want to know is that first off, what it's not a guide for depth, and that's probably the most misunderstood part of a box squat. Now, you are welcome to use things as guides for depth, but a box squat, when used the way that I intend to use it, it's not a guide for depth. We have a totally different idea of things that we're trying to accomplish. So what we're trying to accomplish, for the most part, is, I've mentioned before that I want to be a bucket filler, okay? So I'm looking at our population of athletes, which is mostly high school kids. And when they're at school, they're gonna be getting in the weight room, they're gonna be lifting some weights and things like that, and they're gonna back squat a lot. They're gonna do a back squat. So I don't want them coming in and back squatting again. That bucket got filled at school. So I'm going to take and do things that I know they're not able to do at school, so we can round off and give this kid, you want to fill the most amounts of, or the most buckets possible. Look at all the things that you could do or to help an athlete and look and go, which bucket needs some liquid in it. That's where you're going to go. I know that the box squat bucket is getting left pretty empty, so I'll complement what they're doing at school with the box squat. So this is as much an energy system thing as it is anything, the way I look at it. What you want to do is you want to get, the athlete in here under the bar. Obviously, we're going to just do it as a back squat, but you can use it as a Zercher squat. You can use it as a front squat, however you want to do it, which is a little bit tougher. Some people would poo-poo that idea, but it's up to you. But as a back squat, they're just going to unrack the bar like normal, and then they're just going to sit. And you want a little bit of a delay before they stand back up. And the reason for that is I want them going relaxed to dynamic. And that's a term that I first heard Louis Simmons, who just passed away not too long ago. He was the developer of the conjugate method up in Ohio, the Westside Barbells training facility up there. Basically like the biker gang version of lifting weights and strength training and powerlifting. That was a very hardcore group, but they definitely understood strength. And he was the one that I first heard make mention of the term relaxed to dynamic. And I actually feel like now that I'm saying that out loud, that's wrong, but it was close enough. The way I describe it is relaxed to dynamic. And when I heard that, he was talking about it in a way to basically create a different stimulus for his powerlifters. But when I heard that, I was like, from a zoomed out vision of the game of baseball, that's about the best way I've ever heard it described. Relaxed to dynamic, when you think about that. I want our athletes to be able to go from relaxed to dynamic without, first off, powerfully, but second off, without tearing a hamstring off their bone. I want their muscles to be prepared to go relaxed to dynamic. So that's why we sit down on the bench, okay? That's why I want them sitting down. Like I said, it's not a guide for depth. When you look at a 8-set back squat or an 8-rep back squat, that's going to carry on for, you know, what, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000. That's going to be a pretty long set. There's not many plays in baseball that look like that. I want these to be almost, if we're doing a set of 5, which we won't really go over 5 in hardly any time, but especially with a big lift like this, I want each repetition to be its own mini rep, almost like 5 singles, okay? Because that's much more like the game of baseball. On top of that, I use it a lot in season because this is a way, like a lot of your muscle soreness with back squat comes when the body decelerates the bar and comes back up. So that's where a lot of your muscle soreness comes from. Now, do not misunderstand me. That is a very good thing that your athlete needs to be able to do, but it needs to be trained more in the off season when they're not being expected to perform in games. That's where a lot of people get sidetracked with this. They're like, oh, box squat doesn't cause as much stress, so I'm going to use it exclusively. Well, if you start avoiding stress, you know what happens. You can't do that, but you just have to be smart and manage it at the right times of year, right? So if our athletes, if I've got a person that's in season and they've got like a 5-game stretch coming up really soon, like there's no way I'm going to back squat them. You know, I'm going to change it over to a box squat so we can maintain the strength in their lower body with their squatting pattern, all that stuff, and cut down on that muscle soreness and give them some explosive work. The other thing is RFD, rate of force development. It's the gas pedal for athletes. We want the best gas pedal possible. You can be powerful, but if it takes 10 minutes for you to develop your power, it's no good. It's got to be fast. That's where this type of stuff comes in. The faster you go, if you've got a heavier load on there and you sit down, the faster you can stand up with it, the better your rate of force development is, right? So we use that a lot. How do we set it up? I set it up like, for me, when I sit on this thing, I'm going down here and it's not, I'm almost a parallel. I guess I am parallel with my feet are flat. So if you've got a guy that's like 6'10" and this bench right here is going to have to come up, like that's way too far in the hole for him. He's probably one of those guys that's probably not going to back squat very much. I'm just not going to do it. That's like the one exception to the rule. The guys that are they just have a really hard time doing that. I don't force them into it. And if you're a high school coach watching this, even the JUCO coach is like, it's okay. I don't care what anybody says. There are some guys that cannot go ATG all the way butt to grass. Like they just can't. And if they could, you don't have the time to develop it. Like that's one of those things, it's got to be worked on every day. And unless you've got the knowledge, the time, and all that stuff to make it happen, you're better off just doing this and building it. And because I mean, you only get him for how many hours a week, you know? So it's kind of beating a dead horse or just kind of a lost cause. There's not really a lot you can do with it. So you would be better off to back off and just let this happen. I would love to say I'm 5'10", but I'm pretty much 5'9". I really and truly need to put my feet on a 45-pound plate or on something to make myself a little taller when I do this, just to get it down a little lower, because honestly, box squat is super easy for me. It's so much easier than back squat. I can move a lot of weight. It's just a really easy lift for me because I'm built to squat. So I need to make it more challenging when I do it. If you've got one of those guys that like, he back squats like 400 or 350, but then he can go and box squat like 550 or something like that, you need to raise his feet up a little bit and make it a little bit more challenging for him, because I mean, that's going to be one of those things that plays into it. Now, like I said, with the tall guys, raise it up. You want to get them to about parallel and call that good. You still want to be watching for just general notes. You still want to be watching for knee valgus. You want to make sure that they're able to stand that back up with obviously good technique. Watch the guys that are loading it up really heavy, especially your longer torso guys. If they plop down on this thing, it's going to play their spine like an accordion, and you got to watch that. So if they're not strong enough to handle it on the way down, it's not going to work on the way back up. So and some guys will get a little carried away with that, believe it or not. So don't let them plop down on that. They've got to be able to control it down. I'm not saying like an eccentric set or anything, but it needs to be strong. They need to be able to maintain this with their core and their torso when they sit on that bench. It doesn't really need to fold them like that. The other thing that I watch for, especially with the younger guys and girls, they will have this thing, especially if you're using a bench, they'll have this thing right here, and this right here happens. So they'll get racked, they'll get the bar, and they've got a load on their back, and they're going like this. You don't want that, okay? Get that thing up there between their legs, just like that. We do not want them not knowing where they're going with a load on their back. You gotta make sure to do that. So just like that, and then they can sit straight down, okay? Like I said, don't let it fold them like an accordion. Keep this up tight, nice, relaxed. You're gonna see a lot of this. That's not what we're looking for, okay? That's not relaxed to dynamic. We want this. Like that. Okay, so when not to use it, the main thing that I would say that I don't use it for is, like, if you've got a younger kid or a kid that is, or an athlete that's not able to perform a full squat, you know, like if they can't do this and come back up, they can't keep their knees, they can't keep their feet flat, they're bending over, you know, if it looks more like this and their butt stays high or their feet come off the ground and all that. So if they're not able to perform a body weight squat because of strength, then they need to build their squats with goblet squats, things like that, body weight squats, before they ever start box squatting. So if they can't squat because of height, because their legs are this tall, then I'm kind of backing off on making sure they have a technical squat. It's just not really in the cards for them, most likely. It potentially could be if you are really good at what you do, but like I said, you probably don't have enough time to make it happen. If the person can't back squat to depth, if they're built normally like me and they can't squat, then that's a strength issue, and I won't let them box squat. I want them to build their ability to squat, and then we can start working on this type of stuff. So hopefully that makes sense. Stay tuned. We're going to continue through this, talk about the rack pull. We're going to talk about why we use bands on so many of our lifts, our landmine presses. We'll get into several different things that we use. So hopefully that will help with you guys. If you have any questions, obviously leave them in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.